Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. With us, a couple of guests that have tons of experience in the gold market, in the financial arena. They are both, I think both of them were renowned. Of course, we have Jim Sinclair and we have Bill Holter of JSMindset.com. Gentlemen, thanks for coming on at this really pivotal time in history. Appreciate having you both on.
Great to be here.
Thanks for having us, Greg.
I got to say that the gold market has been absolutely on fire here lately, and a lot of people are saying that there is a pivot happening. Central banks. It was a big story on Friday that or Thursday that they've been buying gold like they haven't been in the last 50 years. They've been buying gold ever since the 2008-2009 financial crisis. And I will start with you, Jim Sinclair. You were on the left-hand side of the screen. Bill Holter, of course, you were on the right-hand side of the screen. But Jim, we'll start with you. What do you think is going on in the gold market right now? Is this a breakout time?
Well, I believe it was maybe 2 interviews ago. I think it could have been Bill and I, because we said that 1058 was the low. And I really think what people are starting to discover has been there for a considerable period of time. When you hear it's on fire, it's not exactly a comment that reflects something that others haven't known. Gold is actually from 1058, rose over 1300, came back down. Now we go through 1400, 1425, and 1450. So gold is definitely back in its bull phase. I've never recognized its decline as a bear phase or a bear market. Looking back in years to come from now, that's going to be obvious, because what you're going to see is this most uncomfortable period of time that we've been through as not a big part of the overall entire market.
You guys are saying that when we look back on this, and Bill, I'll go to you. When we look back on this on a big chart, it'll just look like a little downward and then off to the races again, correct?
Well, yeah, of course. When you look at it long term, you could go back to and look at a chart of equities in 1987. The crash in 87 looks like a little blip, but that was a very big event. You said you used the term gold is on fire. I kind of view it as gold is right now like a tractor in first gear. It's just been steadily moving higher. The pullbacks have been much more shallow. You can see the attacks on gold are not having nearly the effect that it had in the past. And Jim's talking about going through 1400. My opinion is when you see a 14 handle, in other words, 1400 or higher, that's when you're going to see some real fireworks.
Aren't they? If the central banks have been, I looked at it on the chart. It was a story in Zero Hedge, and they had a lovely chart, and you could see all the years up into 2008 and 2009 they were selling, a little less, but selling. After 2008, 2009 crisis, boing, buy central banks, all the while suppressing the price. I mean, that's the game they've been playing. They've been suppressing the price. At some point, are the central banks going to say, okay, we've got enough. Time to take it to the moon? Either one of you guys.
Go ahead, Jim.
Okay. The major move in gold, both Bill and I consider, will be something that is from a Friday to a Monday, or a Monday to a Tuesday, and we'll look on a chart as a large gap and a vertical rise. In between, then, gold will continue to play its normal ups and downs with continued intervention. Bear in mind that back in the early 80s, late 70s, the people who made the most amount of money over the shortest period of time were just those that we who enjoy gold love to dislike. It's the major international investment banks in the world, and now we have something additional. Gold has now become a national policy in China and in Russia, and that policy reflects our conclusion that there'll be two resets, and gold will move vertically when it makes its immense move. And I'd like to go back and say, when you were referring to the price of gold, I sort of heard an idea as if paper gold will determine the price. Paper gold will not be here when the major move of gold takes place.
Wow. When you say two moves, what are the? Could you explain? I'm sorry. I mean, I'm not very smart. But what are the two moves, Jim? You say two moves, and one of them's going to be.
We expect two resets. One designed by the geniuses in Washington and all the major capitals, which will fail. And the second reset will be whatever's left of the marketplace. One will come by design, and the design will not be effective as all designs up to now have been ineffective.
You're talking about the specter of the strategic drawing rights, or not strategic, the special drawing rights, the SDRs. That's going to be something like that, some IMF. Okay, we got a basket.
That's classic wisdom, which unfortunately you can easily say is also, why don't we make the USDX a asset in a currency? It's just not possible. Then after that, and when that doesn't work, and it will be quite soon, you'll see let's say nature's adjustment. And nature's adjustment will not be convertibility, but it will be those currencies that represent the countries holding the most gold. He who has the most gold makes the rules for many reasons, but one of the reasons will be proper management of the accumulation of gold up to that point and going forward. So I don't expect the gold market to act as it did in the 70s. And I do suspect we're going to have some more adventures in the gold market, both ways. But I believe that the finality of all of this is the transfer of the mechanism for price determination from over-leveraged paper to non-leveraged physical.
Bill, every time we have one of these countries go down, whether it's Libya, Gaddafi, or now we have Venezuela, a funny component is always included in there, and that's that people's gold gets disappeared, gone. And Venezuela is shipping their gold out to UAE, and the Russians are mining gold in Venezuela. This could get quite sticky and quite nasty in Venezuela. What's your appraisal of Venezuela? How does it affect the gold market, Venezuela?
Well, what Venezuela has is not a large amount. The 20 tons, I mean, you're not even talking $1 billion. And speaking of 20 tons, there's 20 tons supposedly in the Bank of England that is Venezuelan gold that they're not going to turn over. That would lend to the question, is that gold really there? Do they really have it to deliver? Now, you mentioned before that the central banks might be saying, well, we have enough gold, we'll mark it up. That's not the thought process. It's whether or not the gold is available, attainable. These central banks will buy gold until there is no more gold to be had. And we're more than likely right there. I mean, if you look over the last 12 months, the EFPs, the exchange for physicals that have been moved from COMEX over to the London Exchange, equate to nearly 3 times the amount of gold produced in a year, and well more than 3 times the amount of silver produced globally in a year. I mean, that's a complete fraud. That type of inventory does not exist. I mean, you're talking about over 2 billion ounces of silver. There is no hoard anywhere in the world of 2 billion ounces that could be delivered. So those paper accounting deliveries are not real deliveries. It's a fraud.
Everything, I might add, Bill, everything is a fake. And Bill and I have a rather unusual viewpoint. COMEX gold is going to zero.
Yep.
Explain that.
Well,
Jim,
Go ahead, Bill.
Jim, you said it. You said it. Let me get with you. You said COMEX goal is going to zero. Jim, start with you. Why do you say it's going to zero? $0, zero value, zero amount?
I'll ask a question and I'll answer a question. Okay? What is a contract worth that can't function?
Zero.
Bill, want to take it from there? About
Yeah.
warehouse supply. No warehouse supply. What do we have? No contract.
Right. It's a contract that cannot perform, and if it can't perform, it's worth zero. So what Jim's talking about is you're going to see, you very well in the near future may see the physical price of gold moving up very strongly. At the same time, COMEX contract price is dropping, and that's just people selling to liquidate because they know all they're trading is a piece of paper that cannot deliver actual real physical gold.
Do you think we have a failure moment? Is it imminent? Is it this weekend? Is it coming up in the next few weeks where somebody is going to at some point stand for, we were talking about this, you said that all you need is $5 billion to clean out the silver market. And I don't know how many billions you need to clean out the gold market, but I mean, in the era of Ray Dalio with, I don't know, 180 billion or 200 billion dollars, or a Chinese sovereign wealth fund, or I don't know, is that much money really?
It's cleaned out.
Oh, it's already gone.
Well, if something's leveraged 100, 300, or 500 to 1, Bill, what is it? Gone.
It's a fraud.
So you're saying we already have had a non-delivery moment. We already, the COMEX king and the LBMA queen have no clothes. They're buck naked. And they have no gold.
They
and
are
silver.
fake.
Yeah,
Fake.
that's the reason for the EFPs, because COMEX couldn't fake deliveries any longer. So in order to kick that can down the road, they came up with the exchange for physicals, and it's a very shrouded market, if you will. There's no way to see the actual deliveries. But if you do the math and you look at what is purported to be delivered, there's no way. There's no way that 8,000 metric tons of gold has been delivered out of London. That 8,000 metric tons, by the way, that's about what what London says they actually have in total.
Hey, you guys are going on record.
The price of COMEX seats over the past, say, 5 years, and then said this is all due to the advent of computers. It's not all due to the advent of computers. Some of it is, but the reality is that the exchange has a limited life.
You guys are on record. Am I getting this right? And I'm just going to ask this off camera. You guys are on record saying the game is over. COMEX, LBMI don't have any gold. They're fraud. I mean, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Well, it's that sums it up. I would say there's a little bit more to it than that, but that's the bottom line where I'm concerned.
Go ahead.
It's just as simple as if you have leverage, which is admitted, and if that leverage has been measured between 250 and 500, which has been admitted, that means that paper gold outstanding is now 300 times the amount of gold that can be delivered. It tells the story completely by itself. It may not have interpreters, but the story is there.
And Jim, it's the same thing with the Federal Reserve itself. The Fed is leveraged close to 100 to 1 on their balance sheet to equity.
I know it just discovered this weekend, wasn't it? Somebody put out an article that the Fed is bankrupt.
Yes. Well, yeah,
that is extraordinarily old news.
Right.
How does the system, so people watching this, fellas, are saying, how does the system stay together? How is this not just blowing sky high?
Why do we have abortion after birth? Why do we have young and very attractive young ladies leading a party towards absolute socialism, while a country that takes you about 4 hours to get to by plane is absolutely going into oblivion because of socialism. Why do we have snowflakes? Why don't universities teach Austrian school and Ricardo, as well as Marx?
It's mass dementia.
Well, of a Potemkin city, a city made of cardboard. Just like they used in the Second World War when they wanted to convince the Germans that the invasion of Normandy, etc., was going to be was coming from where our greatest general, or they thought our greatest general, Patton was. Patton was in charge of cardboard tanks. The Germans believed it, and the invasion came another way, although I think that didn't make Patton too happy. That's a fact.
Yeah, I know. I think I just saw that on History or somewhere just recently.
Yes.
That is a fact.
Everything you're looking at is a Potemkin city. What have you seen out of Washington, truthfully, in a long time?
Japan just admitted that 40% of their economic numbers are a farce. That was just a week ago.
Well, if you take a look at what Mr. Williams says, and he's an actuary, he's a super accountant, and all he's doing is taking the matrix of how things were looked at in the 1970s and plugging in the numbers it's showing us now, which demonstrate that all the numbers it's showing us now are absolutely wrong.
Yeah, John Williams, shadowstats.com.
He's a good man, and he's doing good work, except few believe him, if any. I do.
I'm sitting here listening. I mean, I'm laughing, I'm smiling, but I'm happy to have you guys on. But I'm sitting here listening, going, then how is this all staying up? People have to be looking at this, saying, so how much? The big question is when. When is this all going to blow up?
When will confidence blow, in your opinion, Bill?
Say that again. I'm sorry. Say that again. Say that again, Jim.
I said it's all confidence, and therefore I turned it over to Bill, being very much in touch with that part of humanity, and said, when, in your opinion, Bill, do you think confidence will blow?
Well, this is a process. It's not a light switch. You saw a pretty good flash crash in December, and a week ago, I put an article out in, I think, around December 10th, warning of big upsets in the markets. About a week ago, I put out a second crash alert. And I mean, this is a process, and you can see markets again losing momentum, and we're going to have a second flash crash. And this will be a series of flash crashes until one will be a complete purge.
Bill, if I might add to that, Greg, do you really believe there are markets? Because Bill and I we use the word markets because that's what's reported on our TV and that's what flashes on the screen. But all these are figures floating around in cyberspace. There's no supply above them. There's no support below them. No specialists exist anymore anywhere except as a legal excuse to hide a short position and not have to deliver in 3 days. Only reason for specialists. So there's no mechanism adding capital to a market that declines. And there's no machine that was invented, worked, calculated, or determined during a bear market. The main trading entities of what are considered to be markets are algorithms, etc. That's not a market. We've destroyed everything. We not only destroyed the financial system, we destroyed society. I sent my kids to go to college. I never thought for a moment I was sending them to a socialist re-education camp. And we all did it if we were blessed with the ability to do it. The kids that played ball and had great marks got scholarships to these places. And they all have come out thinking that we all are dumb. Cortez, believe it or not, is an example to a degree, of most all graduates of every major Ivy League institution there is.
Marxist. They're Marxist. They're Marxist.
Markets do not exist.
Hey, Jim, you mentioned adding capital to markets. That's one of the big problems right now, is that up until this past year, China actually created capital, exported capital, and even funded U.S. deficits. Now, China has changed somewhat in the fact that they require inflows of capital. So,
in terms of economics, that's a giant.
Right. So they're going to require capital at the same time the West is voracious for capital because of deficits. And where's that capital going to come from?
Well, even in the situation of what people call markets, when I was a specialist, I had an obligation to remain a specialist. And if you were ever lucky enough to have, in those days, the big stocks like IBM and Motors, you were required in a disorderly market, up or down, to provide stock or to provide capital and buy shares. Bill, it's not around anymore. So everywhere you look, the illiquidity is outrageous and camouflaged by a machine that lets you think they're markets because everything's blinking like mad. But they aren't. And those countries that had been the leaders of sound balance sheets are no longer.
Right.
The entire global phenomena is fake. What you see in politics now is only a reflection. The leaders we get are always the ones we deserve, every time. So the markets and economies we get are pretty much what we deserve. And the lack of reality is only sustainable by the confidence in the US dollar as king dollar. So the time that this all implodes is when, as you said at the beginning, neither the king nor the queen have any clothes on. And when you have things such as the investigation of the president for being a Russian spy, and no investigation of crimes committed in the absolute light of day by a different political party, you're getting very close to a point where the Potemkin city might fall down. And maybe we've seen it's only General Patton over there and a lot of flat cardboard. And it's coming home to play. And it's coming home, in my opinion, if I might, because we don't always agree, and if we don't agree, of course, Bill's right. But well, he's at what, four black belts. He's always right. And I'm going for June of this year.
Oh, you're calling that? Do you think that we'll hit a reset button, or the market will completely?
Reset button gets hit after a few days of a flash crash that can't be stopped.
Wow, and that's in June.
We're flash crashing to hell, piece by piece by piece, until all of a sudden, like nature always is, the motion of the entity cannot be stopped. See, everybody takes a picture in time. Look at the news. That's today. Bill and I see things in motion. What's the problem with people who see things in motion? You tend to be relatively visionary, and I'm sorry, ahead of your others. So the weakness in being able to see the end before the beginning is it takes a little while to get there. But I'll get down and tell you that in my personal opinion, June of through 2024 is going to be an experience you do not want to see.
Say that one more time, Jim. You broke up. You're breaking up. You're frozen. Say that again. Say that again one more time. June what?
Period between June of this year and 2024 are a period that you're not going to enjoy seeing at all.
What do you guys? Do you think Trump knows this is going? He must know this is going on, right? I mean, he surely must know that things are getting shaky. He's got to be thinking about a reset. Rob Kirby has said on the air that's one of the first things he was doing was trying to inventory the gold. He must know this is going on. What do you think his plan is?
No
Bill,
plan.
I think he's going to provide over or preside over a bankruptcy. I mean, he's gone through bankruptcies with his own companies, understands the process, and that's what this is. It's the bankruptcy of the corporation of the United States.
Major tool of his business career has been bankruptcy. He's used it as an asset quite successfully.
You had said in the last interview, Jim Sinclair, that we're going to go from the art of the deal to the science of bankruptcy.
Yeah, but we go through the art of the steal before we go to the science of bankruptcy.
Explain.
Art of the deal, written, probably ghostwritten too, and it promoted a man into prominence who was shrewd, used tremendous leverage, tremendous borrowing all the time, and got out of bad deals through bankruptcy. The art of the steal seems to have become the culture that we're in right now. Pay and play anywhere. Is that not the art of the steal? And the art of the bankruptcy, we would hope that President Trump will be in office at the time it happens, and that by being there and understanding bankruptcy, he'll understand that the only way out of bankruptcy is to increase your assets and decrease your liabilities. There's no other way.
And
use that in terms of a country? Yeah, it could be somewhat done, okay? But, that just brings things down to absolute simplicity. Bill and I think that when you get into the most complex of thought, that you end up a moron. And if you keep things simple, there's just a possibility you might survive.
You are thanking your lucky stars. People, I get this all the time. I get this. He's a tool of the New World Order. He's surrounding himself with the globalists. He's one of them. He's leading us down there. I mean, he got us out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Well, I got to admit, I'm related to him.
Okay. He got us out of the Paris Climate Accord. Another terrible. Got us out of the fraud of the Iran deal. He's building a wall. All stuff that the globalists hate. Do you think Donald Trump is a tool of the globalist, or is he trying his hardest to save the republic?
Greg, we posted a couple videos this past week on the public side of our website, and I asked the question knowing what the answer was. I asked whether President Trump has or had any connections in the past to the John Birch Society. And his father was a quiet supporter of the John Birch Society, which leans entirely against globalism and has been a behind the scenes, but a conservative voice for over 50 years in the United States. So, and I won't speak for Jim, but I mean, I think I could, because I think I know how he's thinking on this. No, we don't believe that Trump is a tool being used by the globalists. I believe he is standing firmly against globalism. Just look what he's done.
Yeah.
Well, I might add too. It's my thought looking over history that if there is something that runs all this, like a force or God or whatever you wish to call it, that entity picks a person who can do a job. That entity does not pick a sterling or best person in the world. He picks the person who can do the job. Okay? So all this thing about Trump's dalliances and now they want to go through his income tax, that isn't what counts. Globalism uses that. The dark side, if you will, I prefer that than the deep state, utilizes everything that doesn't count against a man who is capable of doing the job. The question is, will politics allow it? We are watching a coup.
Attempted coup.
It's a bloodless coup, but it is a coup. And it is get him out any way you can possibly get him out. Not wanting to talk about the immoral wall is not exactly negotiated. And then begins to show the weakness of something we hold dear, democracy. Well, you realize at the birth of democracy, only 2% of the Greeks could vote. And at the birth of this nation, it wasn't too much higher. Landowners could vote. Now, if you want to find out what democracy is, go to the Chicago Motor Vehicles Department and take a look at everybody there, or maybe the New York City Motor Vehicles Department, or Night Court, for instance. That's who elects your president. We go around the world intending to spread democracy. A man rises in Tanzania dedicated to killing corruption, and we yell at him, that's not democratic. I think possibly if we stopped imposing our false beliefs on others, we might actually improve the world.
Trump, what do you think his plan with the dollar is? Are we going to end up with $2? Are we going to end up, like you've said, that this is going to start on a Friday and end on a Monday, or start on a Monday and end on a Tuesday? Are we going to get a Treasury dollar and a Federal Reserve note, and the Federal Reserve note will turn to pablum, and they will get two currencies? What do you think will happen to the dollar? Either one of you. Let's start with you, Bill. What do you think will happen with the dollar?
That's possible. There's no telling with the first reset. It is possible that they try to use an internal and external trade dollar. My opinion is Trump understands gold, he understands currencies, and he understands the only way to even attempt to pay back the debt and make good on promises is to cheapen the dollar. So in the first reset, the man-made reset, you may have an inside and outside currency. That will not be the case during the Mother Nature reset.
What will be the Mother Nature reset? What does that look like then?
Well, that's when let's just use gold, for example. That's when physical gold changing hands at whatever price it is the market price, as opposed to pricing made on an exchange of paper contracts that have no relation to gold in any fashion. Mother Nature's reset is asset values versus other goods, other assets. They all change and move toward Mother Nature. In other words, if there's a great supply of something, that product will lose pricing power. If something is scarce, that will gain pricing power. What I'm getting at is the second reset goes back to economics 101, where goods move toward real and Mother Nature justified pricing.
May I add that we'll always have the dollar. I mean, it's always going to be around. What it's worth against other currencies or real purchasing value is most likely considerably lower. Money has to have the characteristic of being a storehouse of value. You work all your life towards, you see these advertisements for, you got to retire for 18 years. I think my retirement plan is a body bag. The idea is that dollars are not going to be able to do for 18 years or even 8 years. Historically, forever, over all time, gold has been a storehouse of value. And paper money has been a currency in exchange for buying and selling things day to day, but by no matter of means ever a storehouse of value. So exactly what Bill said is right. Your savings account will be gold. You're going to buy bread or 10 penny nails or whatever you want with dollars or whatever currency is common to your use. But the country that maintains the highest degree of that which is a storehouse of value will become the strongest of paper currencies. Gold will become quite like the Hope Diamond. Melania Trump walks into a gathering. All eyes turn to the beauty of Trump's wife. In comes that comedian who used to be on Saturday Night Live with a pocketbook, okay, hanging off the side, whacking everybody with it.
Yeah.
Around her neck is Hope Diamond. Bingo! Nobody's looking at Melania anymore. They're all looking at this lady with the Hope Diamond around her neck. That's Mother Nature's reset.
And gold has no liability versus all of these currencies have liability of the issuer, and the additional liability is that the issuer can continually create more and more of that currency, driving the price to zero or the value to zero. That's not possible with gold or silver.
One Fed chairman in the past 10 Fed chairmans have been a genius. Well, we might have gotten close to it with the master of the universe, Volcker. But he couldn't have done what he did without support. He couldn't have taken 10 years to 14 7/8. So that's how we used to trade back then, not in all these decimal points. Trump doesn't have a plan. And there's absolutely nobody near him smart enough to know that you can't plan what Mother Nature's going to do after you put together a concocted system that is no better and, in fact, worse than what just collapsed.
You don't think Trump has a plan? You don't think he has a? He probably has a plan to jail people.
Trump is all knowable, all knowledge, omni-intelligent.
And you're not saying this to be mean. You're saying this because
I'm a Trump supporter. He's got a plan. You think the Secretary of the Treasury had a plan?
Hey, Greg,
say that, a plan that will work.
Greg, let me add that Jim talked about Paul Volcker being possibly the only genius. Paul Volcker, when he was chairman of the Fed, he was able to raise rates. He was able to tighten the money supply. He was able to create a deep recession. And the reason he was able to do that was because the country, corporations, individuals, and the federal government itself was not over-levered in 1980 to the extent that the over-leverage is everywhere today. If Paul Volcker came in today and began to do what he did back in 1979, 1980, all you would see for markets and the economy would be one big black smoking hole. You'd have the entire system come down because the debt that's outstanding cannot sustain. I mean, look, how many rate hikes have we had? 3 or 4 rate hikes, and they're already backing off because they understand if they continue, I mean, it's already over anyway, but if they continue, it's the nail in the coffin.
Let's look at it this way. You have to have support to have a plan. So let's wonder what the Pelosi and Waters and the nice young lady who's a wild socialist. I wonder what their plan is for saving the U.S. dollar from truly reflecting its ability as a storehouse of value.
They don't have a plan.
Well,
why would you think?
Let me add to that. I don't think there's a plan to write the system, if you will, because they know mathematically it can't be done. But I think the plan is to push the United States, the world, through bankruptcy, but under the rule of law.
Paulson didn't know the rule of law, but he knew everything else you said at the meeting when the Fed decided to take on all of the bankrupt over-the-counter derivative contracts onto the books of the Fed. And what he said was, basically, God help us, because we have no idea what type of world we have just created.
We're going to find out.
Yes, but they knew then that they were doing something that had never been done before. They were breaking the central bank on the spot. You can't put your balance sheet in proper condition when you have worthless over-the-counter derivatives as a high percentage of your asset that you're marking to maturity. Marking to maturity is defined as the value of what you have is 100% of whatever it says on that piece of paper. Marking to market, an entirely different situation, is the value of what you say you have is whatever thing out there they call the market that has a price on it. When the gatekeepers of accounting sold their souls and changed the rules of accounting at the level of audit, that assets held by the banking system in corporate America were now to be valued as to maturity, assuming they all, and that's an assumption that they'll all mature and pay back completely. Basically, you want to go back and find out when the end was? That was the end.
Mark, if the Fed marked to market their balance sheet, they have a negative net worth.
Which always brings us back to why the heck is the gold market on fire?
Is it?
Because they know, well, it's starting. There's some pretty good embers there. It ain't being extinguished like it was in 2012 and 13 and 14, you know, this long draw. They wanted you to think while they were buying it, while they were pushing the price down, the central banks wanted you to think it was worthless and a bad investment. And now we find out all the while they were buying it like crazy after the 2008, 2009, which is what your point is about where was the end when we went marked to fantasy accounting.
Well, if I had to stand on a street corner, Bill and I decided we'd get out our tin cups and stand on a street corner as preachers. Our sign would be not the end is near. Our sign would be it ended.
Right. This whole thing has been an experiment, and it'll be looked at as a failed experiment beginning in 2000.
We've been right all along.
2009.
I'm sorry to say that we've been very right. And the idea that we dealt in conspiratorial economic thesis and conspiratorial general outlook is shockingly now clear that we had properly identified and recognized and portrayed the future.
They made everybody sounding an alarm bell look, and myself included, they made me look stupid. And I'm thinking, wow, I can do math. I can't spell with a darn. I'm a journalist, but I can't spell. But I could always do 2 and 2 is always 4, and 6 and 6 is 12, and I always got that. But, you know, you guys had said a long time ago, you know, what's the price? Jim, you said, I don't know, it could be $50,000 an ounce. I mean, you know, and then which sounds crazy.
Okay?
Yeah.
Because China and Russia will be the market makers.
Well, that number, 50,000 an ounce, sounds crazy until you fast forward to the year 2017, the end of 2017, and Mark Skidmore, Dr. Skidmore, and his team of people at Michigan State University said, "Hey, Shazam! There's an additional $21 trillion missing." And then Rob Kirby says, "Wow! Now we know how they floated this. Now we know how they suppressed gold and pushed up the markets and suppressed interest rate. Now we know why they had 21 trillion to work with, along with the 22 trillion we already have." So, I mean, we're looking at a black hole of 43, 44 trillion we know of. Right now.
That now owns physical, because remember that all went somewhere.
That's right.
What's lacking in the statements recently by the professors who have identified from public figures the missing 21 trillion is it went somewhere. Okay? It went missing, yes, but after it went missing, did it float away into space? Go to Pluto? No, it went somewhere.
It's already been used.
Wherever it went, the people who took it there are not stupid. They're smart. And truth to be known, if I'd stayed in the family business, I'd have a lot more money than I have now. But I didn't like the family business. So the question is, how is that going to protect itself? Then if there is to be a reset by Mother Nature, and I'm head trader for China, and Bill's head trader for Russia, because I suspect, Bill. And Bill, I call up Bill. I say, Bill, how are you making the market in gold? Bill says the same as you. 50,000 bid, 50,000 offered. What would you like to do? I'll take anything you want. I'll also give you what you want. What would you like to do? Now, is the gold price fixed or not?
Yeah. Then it's not fixed anymore. Then it's 50,000 an ounce.
And is the gold price $50,000, or is the gold price what COMEX says it is?
Yeah. The gold price is what you guys will pay for it back and forth. That's the new price.
Yeah, and physical market over paper market, contracts that don't perform being worthless, basically eliminates all paper exchanges in the world. Why do you think the 9 exchanges have opened physical exchanges with rules and regulations for very prompt delivery and payment, but rules that would reflect trading in physical metal?
The 21 trillion, which could be way more than that. They only did DOD and HUD. But when you take a look at what they did and what the central banks were doing in the background, I mean, what a crime! I mean, they never intended for it to be paid off. They intended to buy some time, right?
But somebody has that money. Look past the missing to the have. It did not go into evaporation. It moved into the hands of some outrageously intelligent, not necessarily ethical people. And think for a moment that they are so smart that they're going to know what we're talking about here today in the next 6 months.
Yeah, and then of course, then that $21 trillion, which the Washington Post, the evil weasels, they're the true enemy of the people. The Washington Post, the National Public Radio, the Huffington Post, those are the enemy of the people because they said that was fake, even though the federal government made it a national security issue. That kind of confirms it, doesn't it?
That's classified.
You'll steal from your own government. Why?
So if it was crazy, they would say that's just crazy. We don't have to classify a crazy thing. Oh, no. We can't talk about that's classified.
Well,
that should scare the heck out of anybody with $1 in their pocket.
Real.
That's right. Classify it. It's military. Nobody should know that. Nobody should understand why the toilet seat costs $45,000. The screwdriver, $22,500.
So 2 questions for you guys before we wrap it up. It's 48 minutes in here. The guy watching this, and I usually like to be, talk for the little guy because my daddy was a machinist and I'm a little guy. And but they got to be looking at you two guys going, okay, what should I do? What should I do right now?
Take care of yourself. Nobody else is
going to basics.
So tell me.
Matter and where you in it. If I took you in my closet, you'd see 2 years of food.
Yeah, go back to basics.
Get yourself a nice 1954. So when the bomb comes down, it doesn't blow buildings away, but shuts off every computer. You can still drive somewhere if you wanted to.
Until you run out of gas.
Well, that's another problem. We won't go into that, but you and I would obtain the gas bill.
Greg, to answer your question, going back to basics means plan on not having the ability to go to Walmart and purchase your daily goods. You need to stock up on the things you're going to need to live for a couple weeks, a couple months, maybe 6 months. Who knows? But as I've spoken of before, once credit does break, the credit markets break, distribution's not going to happen. So if you run out of toothpaste, well, guess what? You're not going to get any toothpaste until the system comes back up again. So plan on a period of time where you're going to have to rely only on yourself and the things that you already have.
It will come up again, Bill, because God picks not necessarily the good man to do the job, but the man that can do the job. And the forces of darkness try and get rid of that person as fast as possible.
You think that he's also? I have talked to my friends about this and said, listen, he can't just fix the currency. He's got all this fraud. He's got to take these guys down, otherwise his whole family gets killed, or bankrupted, or in prison.
So be it.
But so he's going to have to take these guys down. It's going to get ugly. It's going to get people like, why hasn't he done it already? Because this is going to get ugly. The system better be ready to go. He better have something working before he pulls the trigger on these people going to jail.
Well, are they going to jail?
I don't know.
Will those
I think they are.
50,000 indictments ever be opened?
I believe they are.
I know that's another one, Bill, and I, not necessarily agree, but it makes for a heck of a good argument at least once a day.
But I don't see how you can fix the system and leave the same fraudulent people who got you there in place.
You cannot. You can't.
I mean, it's just like, wow, let's get a good alarm system on a bank, but we'll leave the guys in charge who planned the heist.
Well, Pelosi's got her wall, so she doesn't have to worry.
And why did you guys, and I just want to get this last thing here because, I had Bill on the calendar, and I love having him on, but he calls me up one day and says, listen, Jim wants to come on, which, what a treat. And you haven't been on since the last time I had you on.
Greg.
Greg, I missed you.
Jim, I wanted Jim to be on because we believe we're right there as far as gold breaking out to the upside.
Which is, that's why. So why now? Why?
It's happened.
Look at the action.
The flash crashes to hell have started because the U.S. dollar is only up for one reason. It's only up because there is a synthetic short, which was first identified by Sir Richard the Good.
And if you look at the dollar chart, you can see clearly it is rolling over. The next big move in the dollar is down, which also tells you the next move in any asset priced in dollars is going to cost more dollars because the dollar will weaken dramatically.
The dollar standard's over. We were on a gold standard. Poof, Nixon out. But by good fortune, or maybe as I think pure luck, we went from the dollar standard to the oil standard. Now, what has happened to the petrodollar? Poof, it's out in comparison to what it was, but it's out. Now, what is your next standard, might I ask, Greg? If you got rid of the gold standard, you got rid of the the standard of energy, the petrodollar. What's next? The marbles dollar?
We're going back to gold.
Gold's going back to itself as a storehouse of value. And he who holds the most wears the hope diamond. And no matter how ugly that person might happen to be, he will be looked at by commerce of the world as if he was Melania Trump walking into a ball.
So I hate to tell people to do this because some people shouldn't do this. People say, should I buy gold now? I don't know. How much do you have? I got $3,000. God, go buy a set of tires for your car. Go buy some food and water. Don't buy gold. Don't buy silver.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. Take care of yourself doesn't mean sitting naked, starving to death with a big pile of gold.
That's right. Yeah. You need. It's like I said this on an interview before. I said it's like Bruce Lee. I said, in an old commercial, it says you have to train every part of your body because you never know what you need in a fight.
That's him, by the way, Bruce Lee, right over next to me.
and so you need everything. I mean, for some people, if you can afford it and you got everything else done, you got a car title and a house title, maybe you need to buy some gold. Maybe you need to buy one coin a month somewhere. But you're saying that by June we have a brand new world. By June of 2009,
by June it will be obvious that a brand new world is not a process starting but a process already in place. A brand new grease was not necessarily in one day. However, a brand new dollar will be in a day, and a brand new price of items that do hold storehouses of value, or you can eat, or makes your car go, as Bill is saying, is going to rise in value significantly. And I might say we may be now the leaders of oil. I don't want to sound like a green because most of them are a little whacked, but pumping that junk into the earth we do with fracking can't be good for anything. I mean, you stick poison in something and squeeze the syringe is not going to make that thing better.
Yeah, and it's a financial problem too in the fracking industry. The oil sands, that's a financial problem because they've borrowed so much money, and yeah, the oil comes out rapidly to start with, but the well dries up very quickly when you're talking about that type of, so the longevity is not there.
I think fracking is something that it rhymes with.
Cracking.
I'm not going to go for that one here. I've got to keep this. This is a G-rated show on.
It's PG.
And one last thing, just your closing thoughts to the interview, gentlemen. I mean, you've been kind enough to come on for an hour. You kind enough to come on. Period, both of you guys. And just your closing thing that people should take away from this interview. Jim, we'll start with you. Close with you, Bill. What should you take away from this interview, Jim Sinclair?
Learn self-reliance once more, as the patriots and builders and backbone of this country knew, and exercise it.
I would just say follow your gut. If your gut tells you something's wrong, and it certainly should tell you something is very, very wrong, just prepare yourself, prepare your family, prepare with necessities first. Once you have the necessities taken care of, then if you want to start purchasing precious metals, you start with silver, and your real wealth goes into gold, because gold will carry wealth from this system to whatever the next system is going to look like.
It's a savings account, Bill. I mean,
exactly.
Your savings account is no longer as a debtor to the bank. Your savings account now is that which will maintain whatever you have now. And that's all you want to do. Let's get you tomorrow as we are today in whatever state we are. If you do that, we've done a great job, and there is a tomorrow. Don't think anybody in government's a genius. They're not. You're crying out loud, give the guy a break. He became president. He destroyed his life.
Donald Trump, yeah, he did.
Yeah, total destruction from Nirvana to Hades.
Yeah. All for $1 a year. He only accepts $1 a year.
Well, and they attack his kids. They're nasty to his wife. Okay, he's a Russian spy. Man, that's a good one. That's the Manchurian Candidate. I mean, they're really going off the deep end.
Yeah. You guys have talk for your subscribers every week. I just love getting this in here because I'm fascinated by this. But you could get this kind of access to you and Jim, Bill and Jim, the Holter Sinclair collaboration. They could get it. I think you guys do it once a week. You sit down and talk. Bill, you also are a prolific writer. Some of your stuff ends up on jsmindset.com. There's a free site, well worth going to. But also, you also have, and I get paid nothing for this, incidentally. You give me nothing. I'm doing this because I like you guys and I like your project. So I just want people to know that I'm not getting anything for saying this and putting up links. But Bill, tell about your subscription, how much it is a year, and what do you get?
Well, our site is public on one side and subscription on the other side. We put up, Jim, myself, and a friend of ours, Dave, put up articles on the public side, and then I generally write a couple articles per week, and we do about a 1 hour discussion, the three of us, 4 subscribers, each Saturday afternoon.
I really think our conversations, Bill, is the best thing we do.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's worth the cost of the subscription on its own, just the 1 hour per week.
What do we really do? We sit down with 3 guys that got a half a brain in their head, maybe between the 3 of us. except that's more than most. We have one heck of a good time, by the way. It's like going to a party where I'm concerned, but it's all quite serious. And we mustn't understate that the other member of the gang is a genius. So he holds Bill and I together.
You guys, so it's $129 a year. Is that right? Is it a year?
For the year.
A year.
Yeah, for 52 hours of seminar.
Oh, wow. Yeah. A seminar. Yeah. I know. That's what I'm saying. I mean, I did listen to you guys talk. You're back and forth, and the conclusions you come to, and things like that. I mean, it's kind of like a weekly news wrap up every week of what went on.
I've been an interpreter for the last 30 years.
And you think the Fed is smoked? I mean, they came out and said, "Oh, we're not raising rates." So you think that is another big warning sign before we close?
It's an absolute obvious that he got one heck of a telephone call from the president when he did his last raise. We are political. That's the end of that. The Fed is useless. The world doesn't need the Fed. That's the what is it? The monster from Jekyll Island.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We would operate beautifully if they would burn all those machines, start trading bonds between human beings, have real markets, and recognize that the interest rate is a product of the level of the U.S. Treasury instrument in the U.S. It's not a product of the Fed. The Fed never led to anything. They're more mouth than they are punch. They make things happen, sure, by rhetoric. But the real interest rate comes out of what is the level of the U.S. Treasury bill at that moment in that type of interest. And we do not need the Fed. The Fed is a private bank for the purpose of making a fortune from my relatives.
Yeah. Thank you. Listen, we're going to cut it off right there. It's an hour. What a great in-depth interview. It's Jim Sinclair, world-renowned gold trader, market maker, financial expert. Bill Holter, also deep financial experience in brokerage expert, a broker for gold. You guys run the Sinclair Holter collaboration, or the Holter Sinclair collaboration at JS Mindset. $129 a year to get big access to your writings, Bill Holter, and also your guys' conversations every week. Listen, thanks a lot for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com. Jim Sinclair and Bill Holter, thanks a lot, fellas.
You're welcome, and thanks a lot to you too.
Thank you, Craig.